Students, we are starting a new chapter, dual nature of radiation. Now, till now we are learning about ray optics and wave optics. Now, in ray optics, we have learned that light is a form of particle. What the ray optics is, that light is a form of particle. As we know that light is following the law of reflection. Light follows the laws of reflection. What is reflection? Reflection is nothing but the bouncing back of light. Now, bouncing back means, as we see that the ball, when it is thrown to a surface, hard surface, the ball bounces back. Okay, for example, this is the surface, and if we throw a ball in this manner, the ball will bounce back in this direction. So this is called reflection, as it is followed by the particle of light. So light is a form of particle. This we studied in the ray optics. Now, what the wave optics is? Wave optics says that light is a form of wave. Now, how we know that light is a form of wave? We already learned a very good experiment in the earlier unit, that is Young's double slit experiment, and that Young's double slit experiment help us to study two important phenomena, that is interference and diffraction. Now, if we say that light is a form of particle, then it will be very difficult to explain that interference phenomena and diffraction phenomena. So both of these phenomena that can be explained only when we consider light as a wave. So we have two different things, which are two contradictory things, that light is made up of particles or light is made up of wave. It's a confusion there. So after this time, this was the time when Einstein's was there, and after this time we have some important discoveries which further proved that light is a form of particle as well as wave. So in this chapter, the name of the chapter is dual nature of radiation. We have to learn that light is following the dual character, that is, sometimes it behaves like a particle and sometimes it behaves like a wave. So now let us see some discoveries which were made in that era. So first, in 1870, this scientist William Crook, he discovered cathode rays. Now you might have learned about cathode rays in chemistry, that cathode rays are the beam of particles. They are the negatively beam of particles, that is electrons. But that time actually it was not known that cathode rays are the beam of electrons. Only cathode rays were discovered at that time by the scientist William Crook. This happened in the year 1870. Now, after some time in 1879, after some discoveries were further made in this time, in these 9 years, and further, the scientist only explained that these cathode rays are a stream of fast moving particles, and these particles are negatively charged. He found that these particles are actually negatively charged, and there is a flow of these particles constantly, which forms the cathode rays. Okay, so after some time in 1895, X-rays were discovered. Now, what are X-rays? X-rays are actually positively charged particles which are moving with very high frequency. Okay, so frequency, that is we denoted by nu. Nu of these particles is very, very high. We are talking about X-rays, right? Now, why we call these particles as X-rays? You know that even today we are using the word X-ray, but it was discovered somewhere 200 years back. Okay, so why these particles? They are still called X-rays, and what is the reason behind this? So at that time, it was not known that these particles are made by alpha. These rays are made up of alpha particles. So we gave the name X, that is unknown quantity, as we do in mathematics. So X rays, that means unknown particles. So still we are following the same word here, X rays. So these rays were actually discovered in the year 1895. After that, after 2 years, J.J. Thomson discovered electrons. This scientist discovered the electrons, but he did not find that what is the charge of the electron. He was unable to find the charge of the electrons. He was unable to find the mass of the electrons, but he only discovered the E by M ratio, that is the ratio of charge to mass, we call it. It's very important, and you should learn the value of this E by M ratio, 1.76 into 10 power 11 coulomb per kilogram. This is the value of charge to mass ratio. This E by M ratio is having constant value for all the so all the materials having the same constant value of E by M, and this should be known, right? Now, after some years, in 1913, Millikan performed an important experiment that's called as Millikan's oil drop experiment. Now, with the help of this experiment, we were able to find out the value of charge of the electron. So charge of the electron, that is 1.602 10 power minus 19 coulomb. Today we know this. This is found by Millikan by doing some experiment which is famous as Millikan's oil drop experiment. You might be learning about this. So we know that the value of charge now 1.602 10 power minus 19 coulomb. This is the value of charge of the electron. Now when we put this value in this ratio, again E by M ratio, we put this value of E here and equate it by this, you will get the value of mass. You will get the mass. This was the value of mass of the electron, that is 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kilogram. So this experiment helped us to know the value of E and the value of M separately. This was done by Millikan in the year 1913. Okay, that means it's a recent discovery. So all these things were discovered within this. Okay, after this we come to the concept of free electrons. Now what are free electrons? You might be knowing that all the elements, or we can say all the metals, they are made up of atoms. All the metals are made up of atoms, or all the elements, they are made up of atoms. Now what are atoms? Atoms contain electrons, protons and neutrons. We know that these are the three fundamental particles: electrons, protons and neutrons, which are present inside the atom. Now suppose that this is the nucleus of the atom, this is the nucleus, and outside the nucleus in different shells the electrons are revolving. Okay, so from the knowledge of chemistry we know that first shell contains 2 electrons, second shell contains 8 electrons, and suppose it's an atom whose atomic number is 11. Suppose atomic number is 11, like sodium. So it will be containing in all 11 electrons, and one will be found in the outermost shell, and that outermost electron, that is free to move anywhere. That this free electron is allowed to go anywhere. It can obtain some energy, it can gain some energy, that's called as its ionization energy, and by gaining this small amount of energy it can be freed easily, right? Other electrons also, if they are getting the energy, they can change the shell. So this free electron is moved to go and is allowed to go, and it strikes other atoms. When it strikes other atoms, then it allows those electrons which are free in that atom to move to the other particles, or other to go and further strike to the other atoms or electrons. So in this way there are a large number of free electrons present inside the metal sheet, present inside the metal substance, which are free to move, and these free electrons act as the current carriers, and they are also called as the charge carriers. Okay, so this is the concept of free electrons. Now when this free electron changes the shell, when it gains some energy, it changes the shell, but it cannot leave the metal surface. Now why it cannot leave the metal surface? For this we need to understand that when a electron is released, when the atom loses electron, or when the electron is released from the atom, that time this atom becomes positive ion. It becomes a positive ion, and since this electron is negatively charged, there exists some binding force between the atoms. Okay, between these two there exists some binding force between these two, that is called as Coulombic force. And initially in this case of free electrons, there was no binding force. It was free to move anywhere. There was no binding force with the other electrons or atoms. But in this case, when it loses the atom, that time this atom becomes positive ion, and since electron is negative particle, so there exists a Coulombic force which does not allow the electron to go to the other atom or to leave the particular metal sheet. Okay, so this was the concept of free electrons. Already you have studied in the other classes. Okay, now coming to another term, that is work function. Now as I already told you that electrons cannot leave the metal surface since it is bonded to the metal by Coulombic force. So when we supply a sufficient amount of energy to this outermost electron, when we supply sufficient amount of energy, maybe in the form of sunlight or maybe in the form of some other light of high frequency, then if we supply some energy, then this electron can be easily removed from this metal surface. So this electron will be removed from the surface, and this energy what we supply, the minimum energy which is required by that electron, is called as its work function. So definition already given here, that minimum amount of energy required to remove an electron from a metal surface is called as its work function. Now this work function depends on many factors which we will discuss in the later concepts. So just you have to remember this definition, that this work function is the minimum energy which is need to be supplied to the outermost electron or to the free electrons, so that they can leave the metal surface and they can overcome the binding force, that is the Coulombic force. Now this work function is denoted by phi, and it is measured in electron volt. So this electron volt is the unit for measuring the photoelectric work function. Now this electron volt is having the value 1 electron volt equal to 1.602 to 10 power minus 19 coulombs. That is equal to the charge of the electron. So 1 electron volt, that is the value of electron volt conversion value, which we will be using it mainly to convert one system of unit into another in this case. Okay, so 1 electron volt equal to 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 coulombs. So this was all about the photostatic work function. Okay, now let us compare the value of work function in two cases. Suppose we take two elements, cesium and platinum. This is cesium denoted by Cs and this is platinum denoted by Pt. So in these two cases, the value of work function for cesium is 2.14 electron volt, and the value of platinum work function for platinum is very high, that is 5.65 electron volt. So if we compare them, that we come to know that cesium is having very low value of work function. That means electrons will be emitted out very easily. But as in case of platinum, the electrons will not be emitted if we provide the value of energy less than 5.65. So for different elements or for different metals, there is a different value of work function for which the metal can be ejected, or they can be able to overcome the Coulombic force. After this, we come to another topic, that is emission of the electrons from the metal surface. Now there are three methods of emitting electrons of this emission to be carried out by the metal surface. Three methods. First is thermal emission. First will be thermal emission. Second will be field emission, and the third one will be photoelectric emission. So these are the three methods by which the emissions can be carried out. Now what happens in case of thermal emission? In case of this thermal emission, we are providing the metal sheet with heat energy. Suppose this is the metal sheet and these are the electrons. These dots are representing the electrons on the metal sheet. Now when heat is provided, we are talking about this. When heat is provided to this metal surface, then these electrons, after gaining the energy, they will just leave the metal surface. They will overcome the binding force and they will leave the metal surface. So this phenomena will be called as thermal emissions, and the electrons which come out, they are called as thermal electrons. Now second phenomena, that is called as field emission. Second one is called as field emission. In this case of field emission, we supply very high electric field to the metal surface, and due to the application of the electric field, the electrons leave the metal and they come out. So this process is called as field emission. And the last phenomena, that is called as photoelectric emission. Now photo means light. The word photo comes from photon, that is the light particle. So when the metal is allowed to come in contact with sunlight or infrared light or any other high frequency light, that times the electrons which are present on the metal surface, they just leave the metal surface and they eject out. So this phenomenon is called as photoelectric emission, and the electrons they come out, they are called as photoelectrons. It depends on this ionization energy, photoelectric work function. Okay, so cesium comes out only at the contact with sunlight.